Okay, I'm going to talk about what is, in my opinion, one of the biggest coaching mistakes in jiu-jitsu. Specifically, one of the biggest coaching mistakes when it comes to coaching white belts or even beginners or school in general. And this is honestly something that I've had several people reach out to me online before and ask me how they can address this problem. The question goes something like this: Hey Placido, what would you recommend I do at my school? I'm in a school where a lot of the classes are tailored to beginners, or the coaches teach beginners, and I'm not really getting much out of it. I'm a purple belt and I have about 6 years of experience in the sport. Should I just show up to class and keep going there to learn, or should I just watch instructionals and then just go in for open mats? What should I do? And this is a problem that's actually more common than one would think. Now, I realize why some jiu-jitsu coaches may tailor classes to beginners, or the quote-unquote the white belt. And that's because most jiu-jitsu schools live off of the new students. What I mean by that is that any given point in time, the majority of a school's population would be considered a quote-unquote beginner. And that's simply because in jiu-jitsu is a sport. Jiu-jitsu is a sport with a very high turnover rate. Most people that walk in through the door will not stick with it, and there's a lot of reasons for that, many of them which are very obvious, and I won't spend time on those. But fact of the matter is that most people that walk in through the door of a jiu-jitsu school and sign up will not stick with it, and that's just the facts. Because of this, most jiu-jitsu schools are made up of majority beginners, and for that reason, a lot of times when coaches are coaching or tailoring a class, they look at what the general population of the class is, and they see that they have a class that is full of people who don't have really much expertise or experience. And for that reason, in order to keep the majority of their clientele happy and try to keep them from canceling their membership, getting frustrated, and not coming back, they tailor or they modify the class to appease or accommodate these beginner students. And I understand that some jiu-jitsu schools try to overcome this problem by having classes for beginners and then having classes for advanced students. And I could talk about that as well, but let's face the facts. There are some jiu-jitsu schools where they just don't have that luxury. The coach has another job, and he's trying to still get the school off the ground, and so he's trying to do the best he can with the time that he has. I think when coaches do this, even when the majority of the school is beginner or quote-unquote white belt, is a big mistake. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I think this is a big mistake. Reason number one is you are essentially appealing to or trying to teach to a population or a crowd that, fact of the matter is, they're not going to stick around. In other words, you're investing a lot and focusing on investing in a people group or a group of people that aren't going to stick around. Whereas on the other hand, you have your upper belts where they've proven already that they're invested in the sport and they are more likely to stick around. Okay, so I would argue that that's the number one reason why a coach shouldn't tailor a class to the beginner or the white belt student when there are advanced students in the class. And that's because, again, you're spending time trying to develop students, or the bulk of your attention is going to trying to develop students that, the fact of the matter is, they're likely just not going to stick around. Okay? And remember, as a coach, you invest in your students. You put time into them expecting something to some fruit to come from it. And again, if you don't want to labor in vain teaching beginner students or trying to constantly appease or develop beginner students to the sacrifice of advanced students, is a mistake, because they're just not going to stick around. The second reason why tailoring a class to beginner students, even if the majority population of the class is beginner, is a mistake, is you in fact not only end up teaching to a population group that's not going to stick around, therefore probably won't see a lot of return on your investment, but you actually hurt the more advanced students in the class. The students that have already shown that they're invested in the sport, the purple belts, the brown belts, maybe even the black belts or the blue belts, the guys that have proven to you that they're in this, that they're trying to be in this for the long haul, okay? Probably more specifically purple belt and above. Even a lot of blue belts don't end up making it to purple, okay? But fact of the matter is, when you teach a class or tailor a class around the beginners, when there are advanced students in the class, you end up sacrificing the development of those students. And that's a big mistake. It's a big mistake because, number one, your more advanced students become frustrated. They don't feel like they're being well fed in terms of knowledge and information and development. And they get frustrated and very likely to look for other sources of information elsewhere, maybe even pick up from your gym and leave. Secondly, you actually hurt the white belts as well. How is that so? In not developing or spending time investing into the more advanced students, what you do is that you create a room of more immature athletes. What I mean by that is that in holding back the advanced student, you hold back the knowledge or the skill level of the room as a whole. And in the long run, in the long term, you end up creating a school that doesn't have as good knowledge base, doesn't have as good skill base. When in fact, if you spent time focusing instead on your more advanced students, they themselves would grow in knowledge, they would grow in skill, and if you're doing things right, they would grow in their ability of coaching and transferring said knowledge and skill. And so then all of a sudden what begins to happen is you have this dynamic of more advanced students who are able to come alongside you and help you to coach your beginner students. Okay? So how can a jiu-jitsu coach specifically overcome this problem or this issue? As a coach, what I do is when I show up to a class, what I do is I look around the class and I find who are the most advanced students in this class. And those are the people that I coach to. I do not coach to the lowest common denominator. I don't look at a class and say, okay, today there's 6 white belts here, 2 purple belts, and a brown belt. I'm gonna teach just the most basic knee elbow escape because that's what I have here. I have the majority of the population is white belts. I don't do that. Instead, I will coach to the higher belts. And I actually learned this from my coach, Professor John. Most of you think like, oh, dude, if you're coaching if you're coaching only to the higher belts, the white belts are gonna get frustrated. They're not gonna get it. And that's true to an extent. There are many white belts that will grow frustrated and they're not gonna get it. But that's true regardless, okay? A lot of times what jiu-jitsu does, it reveals character more than develop character. What I mean by that is that the people who are truly resilient and want to stick with it will, and the sport will just show that to them. The sport can develop character as well, don't get me wrong on that, but most times, you know, when you see people in the gym the first 6 months to a year, it hasn't been that much or enough time for them to develop that type of character. Typically what you're seeing there is more what the person already has established as a foundation, right? And again, that could be a whole video in and of itself. But getting back to what I was saying, sorry, I had somebody almost cut me off there, but getting back to what I was saying, what happens is that those beginner students that truly are interested in the sport and want to stick with the sport will rise to the level of your coaching and your teaching. And it's pretty ironic because you think, oh, if I coach more basic, then the fundamental or the students that should be focusing on the basics, quote unquote, will stick with it and it'll be easier for them. Where I was taught, and I've found the opposite is true, where when you teach to the more advanced students and you don't dumb down the material, the students, the white belt students that truly want to learn, that are interested in the sport, that want to develop that character, that have that character already established, will rise to that level. They will find a way to understand or grasp the material. essentially what you're doing is you're basically weeding them out even earlier. And that's very helpful for you as a coach. Think about it, because then all of a sudden you're not spending a lot of time on people that eventually won't stick around. All right, there's probably nothing more discouraging as a coach than for you to spend so much time on a student who you think has so much potential, and you're tailoring classes around said student, and then said student picks up and leaves. Okay, and that happens a lot. It happens a lot in our sport. But as a coach, again, what I would tell the coaches that are listening to this video is, do not tailor your classes to the lowest common denominator. In other words, don't dumb down the material for the beginners or the white belts. Instead, look to teach the higher skill level. Those people who are new will find a way to reach that level. They'll find a way to adjust to that level of coaching and teaching, and find a way to develop that knowledge and develop that skill. That's what I was taught, and that's what I've found to be true. I hope this video helped you a lot. If you like this video, make sure you please comment, hit like, and subscribe. I really appreciate everybody that's been tuning into my channel as I'm trying to grow it. It really means a lot to me, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week.